Hi, I'm Leonard Kelly. I just want to say hello and welcome to my show, Common Grounds, the show where we have conversations with people with deep links in County Wexford from a selection of different sectors and backgrounds. So this evening, my guest is Brian Moore. Brian Moore, the retired MMA fighter. How are you, Brian?
How are things? How are you getting on? I'm all good.
How are things as we're all here melting in Costa del Wexford?
Yeah, I'm sweating.
Jesus.
That's probably the best way to describe me
Oh,
right now.
great to see you, man. I mentioned you're a retired MMA fighter. I would have, as somebody who would have been following, we'll say the boxing that would have happened in the 90s and middleweight boxers. At the time that MMA became big and popular, I think it was the time I was having all my children. If you were to kind of explain the whole MMA scene to me, what would that be?
Well, it's really after progressing in the last like decade for instance, but like UFC started with UFC one. When you look at UFC one and you look at the cards that the bigger events are producing now, it is a completely it's like a different universe. It's entirely different. Like obviously when UFC one started about 25 years ago, if I'm right. Um, it was super unknown. It was a very much a an experiment. If you want, you had people from different weight classes, different disciplines, and it was kind of cool in that sense because you finally got to figure out who would win if a boxer fought a kickboxer or a grappler or a wrestler fought a striker. So we kind of found out those results. But then as the sport progressed, everybody had to try and get good at it all, and that's where like mixed martial arts really developed. And then I suppose over the last 20 years, it's become like this phenomenal sport, very highly skilled sport that requires a lot of discipline, a lot of dedication, and yeah, night and day when you look at where it started and where it is now.
Okay. So like from that point of view, you said that's a fair journey in the space of 25 years. And that's probably that time frame I was talking about. Um, like what would be the biggest misconceptions that people have about MMA? Because the way you've described it right now, it's a regulated elite sport.
Hmm. Well, I suppose if you have to look at it back, like it was in the very early days, it was described by I don't know, I can't remember the man's name, but it was like I think it was a New York senator or something when they were trying to get commissioned. It was just described as human cockfighting.
Oh, wow.
But if you yeah, so and like I always said this, I remember saying it in an interview before that the aesthetics of it doesn't look great. If you look at firstly the setting, it's in a cage.
Hmm.
The cage is there to protect the both fighters. If it's in a if it's in a ring, which it often is too, there's more injuries for guys falling through ropes. In a traditional boxing ring, for instance, the cage is there as a way of protecting. And then, you know, um, so yeah, like I said, the aesthetics are not good. Secondly, if you look at boxing, if someone gets hurt, there's a 10 point, or sorry, there is a 10-second count. And in MMA, you're allowed to follow the guy down, you're allowed to still inflict damage, and you're allowed to look for submissions. But for the untrained eye, it doesn't look safe. It is probably safer. Boxing, you're basically taking a heavy shot, probably dealing with a concussion, given 10 seconds to recover, and then going back to do it again. I don't know, there's only a certain amount of times that can happen in a round before a fight is stopped, but in MMA, there's many ways of defending yourself in those situations too. If you can use grappling, if you're proficient that way, but as someone who loves the sport, I can understand that. But for someone who's looking at the sport for say the first time, yeah, the perception doesn't look great. But it is for a martial art, it is a safe sport in that regard. Obviously, there comes with a lot of risk too. I'm not trying to say it's the safest sport by any means, but it's safer than how it looks, if that makes
Did,
sense.
did, did did I read somewhere that you once fought with one broken hand and during the fight you actually broke another hand?
Mm.
Did I read
Yeah.
that somewhere? And you said like you were so badly injured you couldn't hug your kids afterwards. Is that something like if you were now as a coach looking back,
Mm.
is there any advice you'd give to that guy that got into the ring with the broken hand, or would you do it again?
Uh, to be honest, when you look back at your career, like I'm finished, I'm retired now, but when I look back at it, when you're when you're in the throes of fighting, and you're looking back from a fight to fight perspective, you're thinking of performances and all. And now you kind of look at performance, but you also look at what kind of shaped you and what made you make these decisions. And I know, like, I'm very kind of proud that I continued. I remember the fight really well. It was my first fight against the guy who had been in the UFC. So I had I could not wait for this. I went up a weight class to meet him. He missed weight. He was much bigger than me. Um you know, and the first fight was going very smooth. I dropped him a couple of times. The final bell went. And when I went into round one, I knew something was really bad with my hand. I couldn't really make a fist. So that was fine. I said, right, I'll start using my right hand. And in the first exchange of the second round, I broke my right hand. So then this got really bad, my right did. So I went back to using my left, and this broke 7 times. So my thumb broke uh, like 7
You
fractures.
can break your thumb 7 times.
Well, it looked like a spider's web. There was that many fractures in it, and a
Wow.
plastic surgeon had to put it back together. That's how bad it was. So I know it's crazy that I just said it's a relatively safe sport, and then I go on to talk about this, but I meant from a brain trauma perspective. But no, like I could have stopped, perhaps should have stopped, but there was that just in me that I know that I have, that I don't like quitting and I don't want to stop. And I learned a lot about myself that day, that night. It was just unfortunate how it planned out, but like I said, it's these kind of moments that stick with you. It was not a good experience at the time, obviously, but it kind of drove me to get better. It really put a fire under my belly, and the hardest part of my career was having 2 casts on and not being able to hold my kids. That was rough because they were very small at the time,
Yeah.
and like, yeah, but you know,
But you said, and as the person who doesn't know, like that was basically, was it like you were fighting the elite? You were fighting a Premier League. You were a championship team playing a Premier League team. Is that kind of when you say
pretty much that the guy who I
wow?
fought, Noad Lahad, was in the UFC. He left the UFC to go to Bellator because he got a better contract financially. I fought him, and it was going really, really well. Even when I had one broken hand, it was going well. I was winning pretty very very clearly. I think if there was 10 seconds left in the first round, I would have won, but the bell went and the ref stopped it or jumped in. So I knew my caliber then. That's what really drove me. That was kind of drove me on because I knew I could compete with these guys, and I proved it again then later in my career. Um, but yeah, it was just a bizarre time. It was in Oklahoma, which is just in this casino in the middle of nowhere. The hospital, you couldn't even call it a hospital. You know, we were just driving through farmland to get to this little shack. Thunderstorm. It was just, when I look back at it, it was wild. But weirdly, I have fond memories of it too. You know, so it's you look back at things and you know it was a tough time, but then would I trade it? No, I wouldn't. It was a learning experience, and there was good things that came out of it too. There was people on your team who rallied behind you. There was people who supported you. There was people who done a lot of great things. I was fighting with the company Bellator, who I have a great relationship with, but they reached out to me. They said, "Yeah, are you okay to coach and stuff like that?"
Okay.
And I went, "No, not really. I'm kind of struggling, to be honest." And I looked at my bank account the next day, and they had money in it because they knew, that's the kind of care, and it's just. And then later in my career, I was speaking to I was speaking to my manager, was speaking to the UFC, and I didn't even, I didn't really think about going because they looked after me many times, and that was one of them. So always look back at those kind of moments, and there's a lot of positives to take from a lot of cool things.
So like I could see even smiling as you're telling that story. I'd say the wildness of that sounds incredible. But what has it given you, MMA? I can hear in terms of that piece, that resilience. Is that fair? In terms of that sense of you just know, broken hands or not, you can still go forward.
Like, MMA has given me so much. When I first started this sport, there was no like direction that you could go that was going to make you make a career out of it, because at the time only the very elite top 5 to 10 well-known fighters were making a career out of it. Most guys in the UFC back then were working as well as fighting. So even though, like, I finished college, I was a qualified engineer, I just wanted to pursue this. I fell in love with the second I seen it. I wanted to give it a go, and that was with no like backup plan. I just went for it, and then and I was thinking about it only recently, like what MMA has given me, and it has given me pretty much everything. It has given me the opportunity to like learn a lot about myself, to now have the knowledge from that to now do a coaching role that I adore. I love my job. I love going to work every day. MMA gave me that. Financially, it set me up to be in a better position in life to pay for my like home and give me these things and my gym. So like when people ask like what is MMA giving you, it's pretty much giving me everything, and I'm really proud of that because at the time there was no, even if you got into the higher leagues, like I always remember Shane Carwin, MMA heavyweight. He fought for the heavyweight belt. He fought Brock Lesnar, and he was unstoppable at the time until he met Brock Lesnar. Weird, funnily enough, he was working full time as an engineer while fighting for that belt.
Wow.
There was no guarantee that you're going to make it to a big level or high level and you're going to get well looked after or paid. It was just a pursuit of it because you loved the sport and you wanted to
And
push.
is that the living then? Is that the life? Like if you were studying to be the engineer,
Hmm.
also I assume training at a pretty hardcore level. That's the life, isn't it?
Yeah, I was working like part-time jobs. I started dipping into coaching as well. I was I was not living a good life in that regard of like being
Okay.
financially well off. My wife, she'd moved from Cork to be to start our life together in Wexford after college, and we were on the breadline, no messing. I'm not even joking when I say this. Like I remember when we left college, we were both working part-time jobs, but it was in the middle of a recession. My degree and her degree didn't really matter a whole lot at that time, and it was tough. But I always think that like finding an interest and having love for something can really get you out of bad spots too. So this pursuit and this sport that I had kind of newly found was something that I just wanted to go all in with, and it kept me really focused, and I loved doing it, and I didn't mind the hard times. And I just believed that something good would come out of it,
Yeah.
and even if my career didn't like end up being successful in a fighting perspective, I could go into coaching, which I loved doing anyway. So it worked out in the end.
Do you feel it's different now as a coach in terms of your experience of the training, your experience of the fighting, when you're
Yeah,
the person that's there? Yeah, what's that?
it's hugely different. So when I was coaching while fighting, I was half in because so if I look at like say when I talk about say a few years ago when guys were working full time and then training, that landscape has changed to most now guys are training full time and not working. You know what I mean? So most guys who get into like the likes of a big show like the UFC or Bellator, they don't really work. I always maintained a job because I know how fickle the sport is. I broke my hands for goodness sake. It's something that you can't, rely on as such. So I always had a job. I was always coaching. I have my gym that's there for 12 years, but I can only really say since I retired that I'm fully immersed in the coaching because you have to be like super focused in on the sport because if you're not, there's someone that you're going to come up against who absolutely is. So I was kind of burning the candle on both ends, but
Mm.
now it's different because most people train full time and they don't work. They're financially able to do that, but yeah, it was difficult, but you know,
And how would you have managed that struggle piece? Like did you ever feel the anxiety, whether it be fight related or the life related? So the fight being when you're prepping and there's that fighter, or whether it be just the fact, as you said in your early days, the struggle. So as men, we don't share that kind of vulnerability piece.
there was always like the I would always have a conversation with myself, win, lose, or draw after each fight, where I go, right, is this viable? Is this feasible to go forward with? If I lost the fight, pretty much I was like, right, I'm done with this. I'm not looking at my like especially in the early days. I remember going over and fighting in Jordan, and I got a paycheck at the time that covered my ESB bill. Like there was
Okay.
nothing. It was for peanuts. Um, which is different than what it was when I was at the second half of my career, for instance. So there was always that pressure, but no, like I love doing what I was doing, and it was just it was so even though the days were long, I would coach in the mornings. I would drive up to Dublin. I would train. I would turn around very quickly. I would go train again when I got back in Wexford. I would get something to eat, and I would go coaching until nighttime, rinse and repeat. There wasn't much time to think. There was only time to do, and I just done three things. Number one, train. Number two, work, as in coaching, which didn't really feel like work because I love doing it. And number three, spend time with the family. There was no really going out. There was no really anything else. Towards the end of my career, maybe the last 5 years, 4 years, there was a little bit more of a, because fighting was a lot more, it paid a lot better, so I could take more time away from the gym and focus on other interests and do more things. But in the kind of middle stage of my career, it was just go, go, go. But again, something that I learned a lot from, and I know it's inside me that I have a good work ethic. So there's always things to take from it.
Which do you think was tougher on your family or on your loved ones? The injuries or the risk of injury or that uncertainty piece?
Mm, by the time I had kids, so when I was fighting, and then we had our first child. When I found out my wife was pregnant, when we were planning it, I stopped fighting for 20 months to start my gym. I said I'm not going to rely on a fighter's paycheck, like to support this new child that's coming into my life. You know what I mean? I'm putting a pause on it. Started a gym, and it's been what, like 12, 13 years now, going really, really well. So I'm glad I done that. I yeah, I missed a lot at the time what was happening in the Irish MMA scene. That's when lads started to kind of break into the UFC at the time. Um, but I'm very happy that I done that, because I wouldn't have put my family through that. I just wouldn't have been able to. I wouldn't have been able to go and give it all to training and give it all to fighting when I'm relying on a check to pay bills and feed my family. You know,
Which was actually scarier? Because I remember the first time I saw my first child, but I'll see what you think. Was it that fear of getting into a ring with maybe the toughest opponent you ever had, or the first time you held your first child?
I didn't feel scared when I at all. I like, firstly, because my wife is just the best with kids. She's like taught me so much even before, and so she was my safety net if anything ever. If I messed up, she's always there. But I wanted to be a dad for so long, and I adore it. It's my favorite thing. I love being a father. It just trumps all, and it changed my perspective and my mindset, to be honest, when I first had when I about fighting when I had kids. But it didn't scare me. Maybe like an hour later, I felt like, Jesus, right, this is real, But
I
at
have
the
to bring
time, I
this
was just
home.
going,
You know what do I do?
yeah, no, and weirdly enough, when I went against, like, the best opponent that I ever went against, there was a sense of like, right, calm. But it's when I went against guys that weren't quite up to my level, I felt more scared,
What?
because um probably the expectation that you're meant to go in and you're meant to steamroll this guy, versus you go in as an underdog. You're like, right, pressure's on you. Let's do it. And like, most times when I went in, every time I went in as an underdog, I won. But a couple of times there were scary moments in it where I was like, you know, I got maybe clipped, or I didn't switch on. But usually against like good guys, I would have good performances because pressure was on you, not me. That kind of way, which was a weird kind of mindset. But
It's weird. I often think like Mike Tyson, like the first fighter he lost to when he shouldn't have, and then
Buster
some of his
Douglas,
other, remember Buster Douglas, and
yeah.
some of the other ones, much the same. The
Mm.
the elite guys, he seemed to beat those. Did you know when it was time to retire, or how long were you thinking that? What was that piece that just you went, this might be it?
There wasn't like one particular time. I'll be honest. I just loved what I was doing. I got an injury. My adductor, the muscle, one of the muscles that goes into your groin, that came out in sparring, and it brought bone with it. So it was a brutal, brutal injury. And I went to see a surgeon, and the surgeon said, "Yeah, you have to retire." And I was like, "What? Really? I don't think so. You know what I mean? I've got four doctors. I'm sure I'll be okay. And a friend of mine, a doctor, begged me to go get a second opinion of another consultant. He done actually Johnny Sexton's groin before the
Yeah, yeah.
World Cup. And I went and spoke to this gentleman, and he said, I goes, "Do I have to retire?" And he goes, "No, not at all. You're fine." He goes, "You can get the surgery with me, no problem, or you can rehab it yourself." I was like, "Okay, that's two very different opinions." But when I found out later, it's a super rare injury. and he was the only guy that's done it in Ireland. So like I'm really glad I got it done. But I was getting my rehab done. Then I got offered a really good fight that I was very excited about. Said yes, but the other guy said no, and I was like, all right, fair enough. Kept kind of grinding away, and I was meant to fight another fella, and that fizzled out too. So during the process of me rehabbing this, it took me about 9 months to rehab it, 8 months. Things were going really smooth. I was going up and down to Santry Sports Clinic, who were fantastic. Um, what was happening is I was getting to spend a lot more time with my family, and I was getting to coach a lot, and my gym just started to kind of explode because I was on the mats more and I was able to give it more. And I had many conversations with my wife, and I was like, I don't know. I love the sport of MMA. I'm getting less attracted to the fighting side of things because my kids were young, and like I said, my perspective kind of changed on fighting. I got a bit softer, I think, with it all. And ultimately, I just started enjoying what I was doing on a day to day, coaching and spending time with my family. And then I just had the decision with my wife one night. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be any happier going back. I'm not going to be any happier going back fighting. I'm going to just keep doing what I'm doing and say farewell to it. And I'm very happy it happened that way,
Yeah.
because unfortunate too, because I know a lot of people who've struggled with retirement where they can't find peace afterwards. They turn to different things. But mine was a kind of fizzling out process where I replaced it with something I prefer, which is
Because you can
fun.
see that like so many athletes of all different types seem to need the sport a lot longer than the sport needs them. So
And
you seem, from what you're saying there, it's obvious you were able to just go, that part of my life is done. Like, like what was it? Was it everything you said there? The work, the family? Was it as simple as that you just went next stage?
it was. And also, like, as you said, I still felt excellent in my training. If anything, I was performing better in the gym right up to the injury than I had previously. I only started MMA, or sorry, martial arts at 21. So I didn't have this like career when I started when I was 10 and burnt out or anything like that. So my training age was the same as a younger man. But yeah, I feel like you stay in the sport too long, you're kind of asking for trouble. I kind of set and hit a lot of the goals that I wanted to hit, and I was happy to to walk away from it. Like my kids are what 11 and 8 now, and I am a very like present and active dad. I love that about my life. And I made it so because they're only going to be young once. And I was kind of asking myself, like, what am I going to regret more? Like not seeing my kids as much as I wanted, or not doing another one or two fights, you know? So I kind of came down to that too. And spending time with my wife too. Like it's just very happy what I'm doing, and I'm lucky. So I no point in messing with that, you know.
You've seen the world in terms of fighting. Well, I don't know, have you? You've traveled the world. How much of it you might have seen? Maybe it might be a different question in terms of when you're actually fighting. But you've chosen Wexford. You're back.
Yeah.
You're is Wexford now home?
Wexford has always been my home.
Okay.
So like I'm insanely proud. 228 years ago was the 1788 rebellion. Like I adore Wexford. I love being from this county. Um, and I love the history involved in it. I love the people. I love the places. It's just I love it. I fought. I fought in LA, Russia, Italy, Budapest. I fought all over the world, and I always on my poster on my timesheet on our dressing room, and every single time to be announced, I always made say, do not say that I'm from any other place than Wexford, Ireland. Never. Even though I trained in Dublin and I love Dublin. I've great friends in Dublin. My coach, my gym is Dublin. You know, but I fought out of Wexford. Half my training was done in Wexford, with mainly myself. You know what I mean? But incredibly proud. But I never stepped foot out of it. Like I trained, but always would return. I wanted to be from, you know, I wanted my career to be in Wexford. And like it was always cool because I always remember say with Bellator in particular, there was like the list, and there was like guys from Rio de Janeiro, you know what I mean? The big Brazilian gyms, Cali, you know, California, big American gyms, Russia, and then Wexford was there. And I was like, I know I was the only Wexford professional MMA fighter. I think still am. But I was really proud of that, and I always wanted to put us on the map that way and represent us in some way. Now there's going to be great lads coming through as well, obviously, but Yeah, always Wexford, forever Wexford.
So yeah, have you some guys now in the gym or girls in the gym that you're going, that's the next person that's going to be there?
So I like had a good few opportunities to work with different athletes. I was able I got offered a really good job working in a gym in Dublin, full time as a coach, coaching fighters. My my pursuit at the moment isn't that we have a huge kids program. We have 140 kids training. We have a lot of people from different like levels training. I really love training kids and training people that have never trained before and bringing them from there. I love the atmosphere it creates. I love getting people involved in martial arts. Fighting is a different thing. Fighting is a totally different thing. We have a couple of guys that fight, and I'm behind them 100% because they're in it 100%. Otherwise, I wouldn't. Because you've got to be. If you're getting hit in the head, you got to be 100% in to it. There's no
Can
half
a
measure.
skinny 50-year-old be trained? Or if I was to step into your gym for the first time, what's the first thing I'd notice?
Well, you'll probably notice that the youngest kid we have is 3, and the I won't say the oldest, but the most experienced person we have is what 59. We
So
have
there's hope for me yet, you're saying?
yes, there is. You're what middle of the road. Would you mean
50.
that way?
That's the big, definitely 50.
Yeah.
Look,
But
from like for somebody that's been goal orientated probably for an awful lot of their life, what's next? Is it the gym? Like, is that it? Living a good life in Wexford?
yeah, I have been goal orientated, but I've kind of also appreciated the fact that like I always have goals. Don't get me wrong, but it's um it's nice living a life that you're not chasing things 24/7 with huge risks involved and all these things. I love how my gym is going, and if you ask anyone, I'm absolutely obsessed with coaching. I work a lot. Um, I love doing it. I have my own personal goals. Like I still train a lot in jiu-jitsu. I love just hitting the gym anyway. But there's other pursuits. I'm always interested in something. That's one thing. If it's not like this time last year, I was huge into golf. Went down like a black hole, rabbit hole, not so long ago, where I was reading books constantly on it. So I'm always interested in something, and I'll always be that way. It's just not fighting anymore. That's all. Um, but yeah, look, I think it's always been important to me to have interests and goals, and I'll always be that way. It's just a little bit more relaxed, I think, a different kind of a more relaxed lifestyle at the moment.
Something I've never had a chance to ask an elite athlete. This is a completely segue one, but when you were in the absolute middle of like the hardcore training, was there ever a food that you just went, Jesus, I'd kill for a bag of potato or something like that?
Not potato, but yeah, so look, my walk around weight hasn't changed much since I was fighting. I'm around between 72 and 74 kilos. It doesn't really change. I eat very well and I'm active and all this kind of stuff. But I had to make 61 kilos. That's the weight I was fighting at. So that was brutal. So every food was one that I missed. Pizza and ice cream were the main two things. Do you get me? So I'm sure there's an Italian in there somewhere. I mean, there's some sort of Italian genetics in there. But yeah, both of those for sure.
Well, good weather for these days, I think, Brian. Brian, look, that's been a lovely chat. Thank you for your time. And
Thank you.
is there anything you want in terms of the work you're doing now? Do you want to mention the gym? Do you want to mention anything? Are you good?
Yeah, look at if we're pretty booked up at the moment, but yeah, we're based down in Carrick-on-Bannow. We work with kids and adults, all ages, all experience. We love getting people involved in the martial arts. We feel like it's so beneficial for everyone, both physically and of course mentally too. So, yeah, look at hit me up as they say if you're wanting to get involved, and sure we'll go from there.
All right. Cheers and thank you, man. Take care.
Thank you so much. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye bye.